Peyton, I found a red-backed salamander.
Amazing!
It's actually the lead-back morph. Should I pick it up?
If it's got lead in it, definitely don't eat it.
Okay, I'll try not to. It's really cold today, so he's not too excited. Let me put a leaf here so you can see the coloration. So this is the lead-back morph of the red-backed salamander, Plethodon cinereus. Isn't that beautiful?
It is.
So I found the salamander under this log. We've been looking for some time, but we weren't finding many salamanders because it's really cold today, and they're probably mostly below ground because they're fossorial, which means that they spend some part of their time below ground. So this salamander was under this log. It's the lead-back morph. So there's at least two color morphs in this salamander, the redback and the leadback. There's some other variations. An erythristic morph, which is red, a leucistic morph, which is yellow, which is kind of an albino. This is one of the two common morphs, the leadback. And as I said earlier, what we understand now is that you see higher numbers of the leadback morph in warmer, drier conditions. So it could have to do with forest loss, it could have to do with climate change, we're not sure. This is looks to me to be a female Plethodon cinereus, and I say that because of the shape of the snout. Males have a more squared off snout, females have a more rounded snout, but I can also tell that it appears that this female is gravid. So in amphibians we don't say, and reptiles we don't say pregnant, we say gravid, which means she's with eggs. I can tell that just because I've seen a lot of these salamanders, and back toward the hind legs she looks very thick. Now she's a leadback, so it may be tough for me to see. Oh, yep, you can see the egg.
I'm stretching out my long arms.
I was right. I don't know if you can see the yellow there along the sides right here. She's not very happy with me right now. See the yellow along the belly there, Dr. Peyton?
I do.
Do you see that? So that's
Yep.
a gravid female. See how fat her tail is? Let me get a little, I don't want her to get too dry because she's exposed to the air. So this is what we do with salamanders. You never want to hold salamanders for a long time in your hot, dry hand because our hands are very hot and dry, which actually the hot probably feels good to her right now. But one of the things to notice is, see that tail. The tail in a redback salamander is long, it's thick, and this tail in a salamander is where they store their fat. Sometimes you'll see a salamander missing its tail, and that's not a great thing, especially if they lose their tail just before winter. So that's where they store their fat, the fat that they need to get them through the winter. And especially for a female like this, the fat she needs to develop those eggs. And then to guard them. These salamanders have very complex forms of parental care. So she will lay her eggs somewhere, maybe under a log, maybe under a rock, and she will stay with them as those embryos develop. They don't go to water. This is one of the groups of salamanders that doesn't reproduce in water. They're completely terrestrial. As a matter of fact, if you put this salamander in the vernal pool, it would drown, so we won't do that. But this female, she will lay her eggs, and then she will stay with them and brood them and guard them from invertebrate predators. If an egg dies and starts to become covered with a fungus or a mold, she'll eat that egg so it doesn't infect the other eggs. And she'll sit with the eggs for 2 months or maybe even longer until they hatch into tiny replicas of herself. At which point she will go on and carry on about her life. I'm going to show you how to properly put back a salamander that you found. And again, I want to emphasize for everyone that when you're handling salamanders, the thing you don't want to do is cup them in your hands. You should never do that with any amphibian. You should keep your hands moist or set them on some moist substrate like this rotting bark. They breathe through their skin. Their skin has to stay cool and moist in order for them to breathe. So you can kill them if you're not careful. So I found this salamander under this log. Dr. Peyton, should I put that salamander right back and put the log on top?
If you want to squish it.
Right, and I don't want to squish it. So what I'm going to do is I put the log back, and you guys should always do this. Put the log back, push a little spot with your finger, take that salamander, show her where that opening is, give her a little nudge, and she will go right under there as she's just done. And that way I'm not squishing her, and she's safe. So I appreciate your time, salamander.
So as a question about the decay class of these logs and what could you just describe different decay classes and when you're more likely to find an amphibian under like a freshly fallen tree versus one that's totally disintegrated?
That is an amazing question from an ornithologist. What this suggests to me, students, is that Dr. Peyton pays attention when he's in the field. So we tend to find salamanders in particular under logs of light to moderate decay. So logs that are freshly fallen where some moisture's accumulated underneath, logs that have started to decay a little bit like this one has, but we almost never find salamanders under logs that are heavily decayed and completely coming undone in the forest. And the reason is because rodents and insectivores like shrews tend to take up residence in those logs for reasons I guess they start to dry out, and rodents and insectivores will eat salamanders. So once the log really starts to decay, we stop finding salamanders under them, especially species like this. Occasionally, if you pull over a big chunk of a heavily decayed log, a big chunk, you can find a spotted salamander, for example, because spotted salamanders and also marbled salamanders, Ambystoma opacum, are actually associated with the burrows of mammals and of rodents and insectivores. So they're not going to be preyed upon by those animals. They actually live inside of the burrows with rodents and insectivores, so they can be under those larger decaying logs. But for smaller salamanders like this species, Plethodon cinereus, or the four-toed salamander, Hemidactylium scutatum, we tend to find them under less decayed logs.
Can you find them just searching around underneath the leaf litter or rocks, or what other areas might you find redback salamanders?
So we can find them under rocks occasionally. They seem to like logs better. We don't tend to find them marching around or just under leaf litter, and the exception being if you go out on a warm, rainy night with a headlamp, you will occasionally spot Plethodon cinereus walking on the surface. The interesting thing is, as you go further south into the Appalachian Mountains, where you get many species of these plethodontid salamanders in the family Plethodontidae, the lungless salamanders. If you go out on a warm, rainy night, say in southern Virginia, in a good forested area, the salamanders just begin to bubble from the earth on those nights, and you'll see them on the ground. One time in southern Virginia, I saw the entire trunks of trees covered with 5, 6, 7 species of salamanders. The thing being there, that diversity is so high, abundances are so high given the warm, wet conditions down there, that they're moving up along the bark of trees at night just to reduce competition to find other places to feed.